guys, welcome to another interesting episode of the Jackpot Diary. As you already know, my name is Mina, and with me today we have a special guest on the podcast with us. Not why as you would have expected, especially when I say I'm with me today, is today we have with us Idris, the chairperson of the Nigerian Society in Hampshire. Welcome, Idris, to the podcast today.
Thank you very much.
Wow. Guys, behind the scene, we've been having interesting conversations that I'm sure you guys will be like, well, you should have saved that for the podcast. But we're definitely going to bring this on for you. And, it's going to be fun packed, very, very enlightening because, as you can't see it yet, but I have heard it. Idris is very insightful, very well experienced, and we're bringing all of the vibe for you today. So, Idris, I'm just meeting you for the first time. I must say that to our viewers as well. And I'm personally looking forward to today's conversation with me. I hope you have it all packed for us. Like, just let it out. We want to hear it. So as we typically do on the podcast, like as our culture, the first thing we would typically ask our guests is, what is your Jackpot story?
All right. Thank you very much for that introduction, Mina. As you mentioned, I'm the chairperson of the Nigerian community in Hampshire. And my Jackpot story is a very long one.
Let's have it.
All right.
We're here for it.
Let's go for it then. I would say if I were to characterize it in 2 words, it would be a nomadic academic. So I consider myself an academic nomad. I started moving around right from when I was a little kid in primary school. At first, I was born in Jos, Nigeria, and then I think when I was roughly around 7 years old, we moved to Lagos, to the southwest, and then I spent some time there. I started my first year of secondary school in Ibadan. And then
quite diverse.
Yeah, and then I moved back to Lagos and then to Ota in
Ogun State.
I'm
very familiar with Ota, so yeah.
I said that very silently, the Igomode bit, because that was one of my worst experiences of schooling. But I also studied in Command Day Secondary School in Ikeja. And then I moved to Republic of Benin to finish my secondary school in Cotonou.
Wow.
And then from Cotonou, I moved to Kenya. I did a 1-year pre-university course in Kenya. And then I did my undergrad in UK. I started in 2006, finished in 2009. And then I moved to Saudi Arabia from 2009 to 2010, I went back to Nigeria, did my NYSC, and then moved back to Saudi Arabia from 2012 to 2018. And then in 2019, I came back to the UK to start working. So I'm a nomad.
Wow, guys, it's been a journey from Jos to Lagos to Ibadan to Cote d'Ivoire. No, not Cote d'Ivoire, sorry, Cotonou, to the UK.
To Kenya,
to Saudi
Arabia,
to Kenya, to UK, to Saudi Arabia, and then back to the UK.
Yeah,
it's been a journey. So I'm sure wide range of experience that you've had there because you've moved around a lot. I mean, that's quite good. But I think the next question I would want to ask is, why this movement? What was the idea? Who was pushing that? Was that you, or is that something of interest to you, or was it your parent? Like, what was that?
It was both. So the reason I was born in Jos was because my dad at the time started, he was working at NTA TV College. He was a teacher who was training the very first cohort of journalists who started their journalism work in Nigeria at the time. So that was the first TV college in Nigeria. And then shortly after, in the 1980s, the Nigerian government started to deregulate the media. And so because of that, they set up the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission as the regulating agency. And so my dad was moved from Jos to Lagos, and that was why we moved to Lagos. at the time. Then at some point, my mom also got a job at the Bell Schools in Otta.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why we moved to Otta. Then she was the vice principal and then the principal. Um, and then I didn't I I didn't want to study in the Bells. I didn't want to be too close to family, too close to my mom. So I opted, at the suggestion of my dad, to go to Benin Republic. My dad loves French. He's a Francophile.
Mm.
So he wanted me to learn French. But me, I just wanted to be very, very far away from
From
home. So
home. I
it's
know,
why
right?
I opted to go to Benin Republic to complete my first what's
A
it called?
levels, something
Not
equivalent to A
not my A
levels.
level, actually, just my my WAEC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it was actually a Nigerian school that I studied in. But it's called the Nigerian International School
Wow.
in Republic of Benin, Cotonou.
Wow.
And then then to Kenya. My dad started working for the UN, and he was moved to Burundi, for work there. But family members, because of the sad um, conflicts that was happening in Rwanda, Burundi, in that time, family members couldn't stay in Burundi. So we were only allowed to stay as near as Kenya
Oh,
at the time. So that's why I was in Kenya. And then Liverpool was my choice. I had the opportunity to go anywhere. And I thought, I've heard
nice.
about Liverpool. Some people came from Liverpool to my to the school in Kenya and spoke to us. Many people came from different universities actually, but the Liverpoolians, for some reason, they were more impressive to me, so I opted for
Went
that.
for that option.
Yeah.
Okay, that's quite interesting. I mean, for me, there I see like a bit more of that journey came from the parents, and it looks like you come from a very learned academic family, which is good to see. I mean, we can even talk from your articulation, we can tell that you're quite a very intelligent personality. But yeah, so if we bring it back to the whole jackpot thing, we are in the UK, so it's quite good that you're kind of a different what would I say, we've had a guest who has been in the UK almost all their life, who studied here, so I'm glad that you did your undergrad here. What has it been like from back in those, like back when you came into the UK newly for your undergraduate, and now seeing the transition in how much migrants have now, or people have now moved into this country? What was that different? What was it like then, and what is it like now?
So there is there's a bit of stories associated with this. So when I moved to the UK, I was in Liverpool, like I said, and Liverpool is in the north of the country. And if you've ever traveled, towards the north, you would begin to notice certain cultural differences with.
Such as.
Well, there is still some. The north was the traditional industrial
Area.
region
Okay.
of UK, and so it has a very rich culture of industrialists who were also unionists, and so they have a more communal, sort of community oriented setup
Okay.
towards the north. And so my initial experience there was, just first of all, I was on campus, around campus most of the time. So lots of people there were also international students. There weren't that many Nigerians who were outside of the university. So most of the people outside of university that I interacted with were locals, Liverpoolians, and they tended to be very warm, but also very brash and direct people when you interact with them. It was a very different cultural experience, and I have to say, in some ways, it did bias my understanding of what interacting with British people was, because that was my only experience of British people.
Okay.
And I was in for a big shock after I had left the UK and then came back down south, because it was an entirely different experience. Interacting with local British people here down south it's colder. I have to say. The first thing I did when I arrived, I was so excited. I was like, "Oh yeah, I want to get to meet my neighbors." And so I got like boxes of chocolates and put it in front of everyone's doors with little nice handwritten notes and like,
okay.
oh, hey guys, I'm your new neighbor. And you can call me on XYZ, I went to work, came back, and all the chocolates and the letters were gone, but I didn't
You
receive
didn't receive any call. That's so. Thanks for the chocolate. Oh
Yeah. I asked my British colleague later, I'm like, so like if, for example, you give your neighbors chocolates and like, and your number and no one responds, how should I interpret that? And he looked at me and was like, well, were the chocolates still there? I was like, no. I was like, that means they like you.
Ah, really? I mean, you could have just called to say thank you. I mean, that would show that you like me.
Right.
And then I take my chocolate without saying anything to me.
Exactly. So yeah, but the north, I'd say, my experience there was a lot warmer. But yeah, so coming now to Southampton, I think the difference in terms of Nigerian presence is has changed significantly. I see a lot of Nigerians who have just come in. Many of them came in on health workers visas and to come and help to continue to shore up the
NHS.
system here, NHS, also the economy. It's very important to have a working health system, and because of that, the Nigerians who came in here are Nigerians who have been perhaps experiencing a lot of desperate situations back home in Nigeria, and they see it largely as an opportunity for them to, come here and pursue some sort of ends towards their, their living and also. Yeah.
Great, thank you. That's such an insight, and you did a good job with the question. Actually, what could give us quite an insight there in your experience. I mean, living in the north and then moving down to the south. I mean, I have been in the south, so I really can relate to being in Liverpool. I think the farthest I've gone up north is Manchester. I don't know. Actually, I've been to Scotland, so for a couple of days. I wouldn't say I could compare, the environment there with the people that live in the south, but it's quite an insight that you've shared with us there. So I think for me, the next question which I would like to get into is, I mean, from your conversation and what we've talked about so far, is more like, what would you say is, from your perspective? And yeah, people have different opinion in terms of what has been pushing Nigerians to the UK. I know you've just mentioned one of it because they've gone through several routes. But from your opinion, what would you say is that major push or that change that has brought about this movement?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's the economic pressures back home, and you sort of, this is, by the way, it's not the first time something such as this is happening in
Yeah.
history. People have always migrated. It's migration is as old as humanity itself, and normally people have various reasons or pressures that lead to that. Maybe historically it used to be that there was floods or famine or
Mhm.
something. But now we live in such a globalized world where we're so interconnected economically. Um, uh, Unfortunately, the way the world is also constructed means that there are economic losers. And Nigeria happens to be one of those countries where mostly it exists as an outpost for extraction of resources. And those resources come to places like the UK or, US, China, a lot of other countries. And so because the resources are not in Nigeria to serve the needs of Nigerians, it results in a lot of poverty, increase in poverty, and that then forces people to seek places where they can find some sort of relief for themselves. And it's why we see many Nigerians coming to the
Coming in.
UK.
Okay, that's good. So, aside Idris, from the academic point of view, how you've come into the UK, been the chairperson, which we're going to come back into. I'm sure that's what most of our Jaffa community would like to hear, and the support that you give. But I would like to ask, what do you do personally in the UK? Like,
So yeah, you mean aside from my actual work?
no, I mean your actual work. What
my
area are
actual
you
work, okay.
in? I mean, you got out of school. What job
Right.
did you? What industry did you go into?
academia. I'm still in academia.
Really? Are
Yes.
you a lecturer or?
I am a researcher. I
Okay.
work at the University of Southampton, and
Interesting.
yes, so when you said aside from the academic point of view, I'm
Oh,
like,
it's like I don't do anything else. I'm still in the academic. Okay.
yes, I do teach sometimes. I teach first years experimental physics. I'm a physicist by my expertise. So yeah.
Interesting. It's quite interesting. I mean, I don't know how this is going to sound to everyone, but it's it's always nice when you find Black people, Nigerian. I particularly like it finding them in these areas, sort of areas. When I think of when I was younger and I think about a scientist or a researcher, I just feel like it's particular to some people, like the white people, the British people. It's like it's Oyinbo people that are always researchers. So growing up and coming here and seeing Black people do great things and being in this sort of environment, it just gives me so much joy. So well done with what you're doing there.
Yeah, I did want to say something on that
Yeah,
particular
please.
note. Because of what you've just said,
Yeah.
about how, the image that you conjure when you think about a scientist is a white, usually not even just a white person, a white man.
Yeah, a white man
Yeah,
actually.
with afro, rough
Mhm.
hair and very, yeah, cheesy. Anyway, so that particular
No
point
sure.
has been bothering me for a while as well, and um, since last year, one of the programs I'm organizing in my department is to bring in Nigerian um, children from the Nigerian community to the department to, first of all, interact with physical sciences oriented fields, get to know what happens in the labs, in how exciting things can be when you're doing science, but also I want them to see me. I want to visibilize myself. I want to visibilize other Black people who are present at the university, because it's a very powerful thing to see somebody who looks like you doing something that you've never imagined. And it can be an inspiring, experience for a lot of our young people. And right now, Black people are extremely underrepresented in the field, and that needs to change.
Of course, I wouldn't even.
Yeah.
I wouldn't contest that because I
Yeah.
personally, I wouldn't have thought. Of course, there is. So
Yeah.
I'm not being naive, but it's like not too many of them, and then that's the reality. But it's a good job. It's a good thing that you're doing. Trying to catch them young and exposing them to these possibilities and getting them to get interested in that sort of field. And I think it's a great work that you're doing right there. So back to the community and where you work, where you represent us. What is this community about here in Hampshire? Hampshire cuts across not just Southampton, if I'm correct, of course. So what is this about? How do you support people? What do you do? What's the goal?
So the Nigerian community in Hampshire has been in existence, I think, in different forms for over 2 decades now.
Wow.
It's had different names, but the fundamental core of it has the purpose, aim of that community has always been to be a platform for Nigerians to be able to find, as the word implies, community here. Because one thing as a Nigerian, when you get to UK, one of the first things you notice is how extremely individualistic the system is. Everyone has to live as an isolated unit on their own, and you struggle a lot to find friends, to have things to do. And that's just what the Nigerian community, they gap that the Nigerian community is trying to fill. That we know that as Nigerians, there's this thing that's special about being in community with other people. So it exists to provide that platform for Nigerians to meet together, to support one another whenever they have problems, or even if there is no problem, but when Nigerians come into the UK, they're very, people can be, the system in Nigeria is very different, so people need support and guidance on how to navigate the system a lot. And only the people who understand the context from which you came the people who can then provide that kind of support and be like, don't do this, navigate yourself, move in this way or that way. Don't say X thing or Y thing when you're speaking with X or Y people. Like, just these types of support that would then allow, people to settle in very quickly. Also, what kinds of jobs are out there, what you can do as a way to, seek support from the government, from, local communities or charities and all of that. So we provide those types of things. And just as importantly, not more importantly, but just as importantly, we provide a way for Nigerians to celebrate each other, celebrate ourselves, celebrate our achievements. It's not easy. It's not easy to leave Nigeria and come to a place like this and start from the scratch, which many Nigerians do. So it's part of, why we have 3 core events every year. One of those is the barbecue, summer barbecue event, which has been going on for over 10 years. Like I said, it's now being run by the Nigerian community and the Ghanaian Association in Southampton. So it happens usually in the month of July, the first Saturday after school closes, and it usually attracts hundreds to thousands of people who come there. The second anchor event that we have is usually the Independence celebration that happens around the first week of October. And the third anchor event is the end of the year celebration. It's usually a time for us to reach out to members, to bring everyone together. We chat, we eat, and we also give gifts to children of the community. But aside from that, we have a lot of side programs that we do as well. So one of those is the Golden Eaglets program, which is designed specifically for Nigerian children in Hampshire. And what it is that it's a supplementary education program where we try and fill gaps that are usually not filled in the sort of schools that the kids would attend here. So we teach them things like history of Nigeria, about their language. They also have cultural engagements. Sometimes we invite, people who are into the cultural scenes, like drummers, to show them how to drum, how to do things.
Do some extracurricular activities.
Also financial education. So, and leadership skills as well. So we also bring them, we bring the kids to our meetings, whenever we have meetings usually every first Sunday of the month. They come, they see what we're doing. Sometimes they just do their own things, they play. But it's a great thing for them to see that sort of community and grow up in that community, because that's how, they don't lose touch with themselves, with their history and
where their background, when they've come from. That's beautiful. I think it's a good job you have going on there within the community, which would also look to be a part of. I mean, this program is particularly targeted at Nigerians, immigrants, within the UK. So, just before we carry on, as I have a second phase of this conversation, and it's more about, how people are living the life migrants live here, opportunities that they could take from your view, being here for like a number of years, what are those basic advice you would give to people? But before we get to that session, let's quickly go through our trivial segment of the podcast, and then that would be the second phase of the podcast. Right. Moderator, are you ready for us?
Okay.
See, we have an academician here. So
Yeah.
I should be the one who would be scared, because
Exactly.
Idris is...
Like I said, I'm not very good at trivia.
You're not good at trivia, don't worry. I'm sure our moderator will say favor you. It always favors the guest. So I should be the one that will be scared. Anyways, we're ready for you when you're ready.
All right. I think this one would probably be longer. 26 minutes. All right. I'll run through 8 questions.
Okay.
I'm not giving any options this time.
Okay.
Oh wow.
That's scary.
Yeah,
That's scary for me.
that used to be my nightmare during exams.
Exams, oh,
Like
when you have
after
to
multiple choice, I'm like, okay, the rest of it.
I'm done.
I leave it to you, God. Show me the way.
Okay.
All right, question number 1. What is the largest country by land area in Africa? The largest country by land area in Africa.
My land area, you mean land mass?
Yes. Question 2. Who wrote the play Romeo and Juliet?
Okay.
Question 3. Which planet is known as the red planet?
I knew he was going to favor the researcher. I mean, how am I supposed to contest with the contest? Okay.
Question 4.
Mhm.
What is the capital city of Nigeria?
Oh, that's a hard one.
Yeah, actually, the capital city.
Of Nigeria.
Okay.
Question 5. Which African river is the longest in the world?
Okay.
Question 6. What is the official language of Egypt? Question 7. Which element has the atomic number 1? And finally, question 8. What is the most, or which is the most populous city in Africa?
The most popular city in Africa.
In Africa.
I couldn't just think away from home. Anyways, I'm
If you don't, can swap, boss.
I'm sorry, but this is not my area of specialization. Okay.
Okay. Question 1. What is the largest country by land area or land mass in Africa? Algeria.
Okay.
Question 2.
Yeah.
Who wrote the play Romeo and Juliet? William Shakespeare.
Okay.
Question 3. Which planet is known as the red planet? Mars.
Oh, okay. That's where the research. That's where the researcher gets ahead.
Question
Okay.
4. What is the capital city of Nigeria? Abuja.
Could have just said Lagos.
It was Lagos at some point.
I mean, it was at some point. Okay.
Alright, question 5. Which African river is the longest in the world? River Nile.
Okay.
Question 6. What is the official language of Egypt?
Mhm.
Arabic.
Okay.
Question 7. Which element has the atomic number 1? Hydrogen.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, question 8. The most popular city in Africa? Lagos.
Is it Lagos?
Yeah.
No way.
So you said Cairo. What did you say the answer was? You said
Lagos.
Lagos. Well, I couldn't even.
Let's just say this one was a draw.
This one was it was a tie.
It's a-
Well, Cairo, isn't that like Lagos is
I thought so. Yeah,
Lagos is populated.
that's true. So it's Cairo.
No, so is Lagos. But anyways, that was a good one. You got 6 out of 8.
Yeah. What did she get?
She got 7. Oh, sorry, 6. No.
Well, I mean, I've got Lagos.
If I mark Lagos correct, I dispute that fact. But
I think the only one like I felt is the mass and the planet one.
yeah,
Okay,
That
and
was
the first
Mars.
one,
the country
country one.
most largest country by landmass.
So what did you say the answer is?
Algeria.
No. I could
Yes, I thought that was Libya.
I could never. But that was good. I didn't rate myself that much. But anyways, that was a good one. How did you find it? What did you think about the questions?
Well, the questions were very interesting questions and diverse. So I like that they came from all kinds of angles.
From all backgrounds.
Yes. And I enjoy that I'm on the hot seat this time because usually for the Nigerian community events, I organize quizzes like this, usually Nigerian focused, and I enjoy seeing people squirm whenever they get the answers wrong. I'm a very tricky person, so I put the trickiest questions in there.
So it's actually good that when they are watching this, they say, "Hey, it's your turn today.
We caught you.
You're in the hot seat."
I'd be asking people who was the first person to abolish the killing of twin children in Nigeria, and everyone would be like, Mary Slessor, and I'm like, wrong. It was Oba Eyo.
What do you mean Oba Eyo? Like,
Yeah.
I would curse you too. Like, what do you mean Oba Eyo? We all know it's Mary Slessor.
Exactly. That's why I asked that question. He's like,
anyway, yeah, things like that can be really, really, really
Yeah.
interesting. But thank you. It was good going through that session with you. And guys,
It was a pleasure.
as we always do, when you listen to the trivia questions, put your answers right before you hear the answer. Let's see what you get as well. Because all of you that you always laugh at us that Mina and Waye. They always call for Mina and Waye, but this time let's hear it from you. So back to the conversation. I mean, this is kind of like the second phase of this conversation, and we're really just going to go into we try to, like, on the podcast, in as much as we bring people's experiences, it's more like virtually documenting our experience as an immigrant in this country. Really, that's what this is really about. But at the same time, we try to share some sort of insight, advice to our Japa community, like the people, to say, if you are in this country, this is the best path for you. It might not be the best, but some sort of advice, financial advice, how to navigate the job market, how to integrate with the society. Don't forget back home, things you could, those sort of experience. And I would really like to hear from you, considering the fact that you've been here for bare years. What's your thoughts in terms of being an immigrant? Yes, we've come to this country for a better life, but how can we keep that wealth? How can we make it better? How can we ensure that we can pass it down to our children?
That's a very it's a question that is deeper than it sounds, because I'm a deep person. I think a lot of Nigerians, when they come to the UK, they come with a lot of trauma because of just how difficult things are back home, and also our experiences with fellow Nigerians. We tend to generalize those experiences and think, let's, as much as possible, when we're in the UK, avoid
fellow Nigerians. Absolutely.
But that is, I have to put it very plainly, a big mistake. Don't do that. One of the first things you should do when you come to UK, in fact, is to seek out community. Community is very important. And of course, I'm saying this because I have a bias. Again, speaking from the perspective of the Nigerian community, Hampshire, which I'm the chairperson of. But also, it's because I have experience of both sides. I'm not preaching, I have been in that position when I came initially for my undergrad. My impulse was to avoid Nigerians. One of the persons who ended up being one of my best friends The first time I met him, he scared the Jesus out of me. He had dada. You know how when you grow up in Nigeria, especially in very strict homes, you're told, those people with dada, avoid them. This, that. So I had those types of, very senseless biases. And he had, that
The dreads.
hairstyle, and he was very ebullient. He just came and expressed his like, hey, what's up? And it's like, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from Nigeria. And then I was like, where are you from? He's like, yeah, I'm from Nigeria too. I'm like, oh dear. I'm going to avoid this guy by all means. And then I tried to avoid him by all means. And then we ended up being classmates. He was there in my class. And then I was like, yeah, I'm just not going to hang out with that guy. Then turns out, he was actually the best graduating student from my class.
Wow.
I judged that book by the cover, and there was nothing wrong with the cover either. Like it was just I had that bias. But also, over time we grew close. We even started to live together before I finished my undergrad, and it was it was a completely different experience to have someone that I could relate with on a very personal level,
Yeah.
because he understood me and I understood him. And it's the same kind of experience I'm having now with the Nigerian community. A lot of times there's been, situations where I felt really down, and it was something that was happening in the Nigerian community that really rejigged me,
Uplifted.
brought life back to me. And there's members of that community as well who can testify to how much that community has been there for them, to provide advice. Like you said, there's not one advice, there's not one thing that you should do or can do that you're going to succeed. It's hard. Life is hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Even here in the UK, it's hard. So like what we just try as much as possible our best and try to make what we can make for ourselves, do what needs to be done. And so in doing all of that, we need people who can be there for us, who will support us when we're down, who will understand our situation because they've been through it. And this is why I'm emphasizing community more than anything else. As regards the issue of wealth and keeping your saving it for the other generation, I would just say that in the end of the day, it depends on how much you're able to make. But I think the real wealth is in the relationships that you forge.
Thank you very much. That's quite insightful. And I picked on the part where you said, first off, you would emphasize on the fact that you need the community, you need the people. I would say, yes, you're right. But I mean, there have been situations where I've heard people's experience of how, that can burn your finger on the other side. Just as it has its advantage, it does have its disadvantage. And I wouldn't ask you to put out any situation, but I'm sure even within the community, you would have seen things like that happen. And hence why, I mean, I think a lot of people carry this notion of I'll just do my thing and I'll just carry on my own. But then, I mean, having such community, and this is going to the financial aspect in terms of it just feels like there is a need for us to begin to enlighten that same community and our people. Like, yes, you've taken this leap of faith. You've left Nigeria for a greener pasture, but it doesn't still guarantee, success in life and a good end of life, for yourself, for your family. And it's just, I'm particular about now enlightening people when you're here, the possible thing that you do. And hence why, I mean, that question, when people come on the podcast, is like, share your experience. How do you go about your savings? Is there any investment opportunities that you think people should get into, particularly immigrants, to kind of keep their wealth? The tax in this country is really high. You earn and you get very little to keep to yourself, and for you to then save out of that is kind of difficult. So it's just that support we try to like bring to the people within the community, to be honest. But thank you very much for the insights that you've shared with us today, Idris. It was quite interesting. I mean, like we envisaged at the beginning of the conversation, it was interesting talking to you, and we hope to see you again next time. Any last words, for our Japa community before we round up today?
Well, I'll say life, you only live once, so live
YOLO.
life. Yeah, live life. Don't forget that all of the drudgeries and difficulties, they don't go away, they don't disappear, and don't lose sight of who you really are, and what gives you life, and always seek it out no matter what you're facing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for sticking with us today on the podcast. As always, you know what I will tell you. Share, like, engage, leave your comments. If there is something that we've discussed today on the podcast that you think you need further clarification on, or you need support, or you would like to be a part of this community, Idris, I'm sure people that don't live in Hampshire can also be a part of the community. If there is a group, WhatsApp group, or something that you could, maybe share with us, we could have it down below in the link, and in the link for this particular episode, just to help people join, meet people. Like they said, you never know where your help can come from, or sort of insight that you could get from other people. So guys, if you enjoy this podcast, if you enjoy this episode, if you have any questions, anything, just leave it down below, and we'll see you again on the next episode at Ijapa.